Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna Mataji and Varpana.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Sorry for the delay. We'll get started. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyamate Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavranda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we have to start on the verse number 11 and we need to complete two verses, verse number 11 and 12. We'll have a quick recap on the Ishopanishad. We'll open the book. Okay, so the recap, the slide that I have, we can present that. So what did we learn so far in Ishopanishad? That this book is part of the Shruti, this is part of the Vedas, and it is the Upanishad. Upanishad means that which brings us closer to the Lord. And the language itself is very, is elevated language, as well as it's very hard to understand. That is why it is very hard to understand. Therefore, it becomes hard to read the Vedas. This is one of the Vedic literature. It becomes hard to learn Vedas. Therefore, the Acharyas, so this is part of the Shruti, which comes down from the disciplic succession just by the process of hearing. Then there are Smritis, where the based on some devotees, Acharya's realization, Smritis are written. So, and that becomes very easy to follow because it's mostly in the story form, like Bhagavatam is in the story form. So you can understand the philosophy in a very easy way because the devotees' prayers are there and they share their realization. Someone is sharing, it becomes easy to understand. Whereas if someone gives you poetry, it becomes, this is like poetry, very hard, very cryptic. You need to go into the details and understand. So that's why we need an Acharya who can explain. And Srila Prabhupada is doing that and he has written these translations for us. So that's the introduction. Invocation is where the main essence of the literature is described in the invocation mantra. For every book, like what is the essence of the book? And for Bhagavatam, it is that Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, the 41 verse is the essence of Bhagavatam. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of God. In this also, this is invocation is established as the Lord is complete and everything. So Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. The Lord is the proprietor, the controller, and he is the complete whole, and he is everything that is emanating from him are also complete units. Mantras 1 to 3, we learned the proprietorship of the Lord. And if you understand that proprietorship and you only accept what that has been allocated to you as your quota, then you can continue to live for hundreds of years. Otherwise, one will be glided down to the darkest regions. That's 1 to 3. Now, 4 to 8 is the vision of a Mahabhagavat devotee. A devotee who looks at the Lord has got this vision, like how the Lord has got inconceivable potencies. And looking at them and not being disturbed by any of that and not being losing his faith is the essence of the vision of a Mahabhagavat, verses 4 to 8. Now, mantras 9 to 11, it describes about knowledge. And 12 to 14 describes about the absolute Lord in relation with relativity and absolute. So that's something, again, very, you understand how the flow of this book is. Like, it is not very, that is, we need to take support of the verses from Bhagavad Gita and other literatures that Srila Prabhupada has kindly given us so that we can understand what is this book talking to us about. So the mantras 9 to 11 explains about the knowledge. We completed 9th verse. Verse 9, mantra 9 talks about that knowledge. That knowledge is ignorance can take us to nations, but the so-called, without lack of knowledge takes us to nations. But the so-called knowledge or the misguided knowledge take us still to the darker regions of ignorance. That's 9th verse. And the 11th verse talks about, which we're going to learn, 10th and 11th today, 10th and 11th we have to finish today. This knowledge that we have described, which the lack of knowledge or ignorance takes us to darker regions, and the so-called, so we understood, right? Like there is a twist in the way it has been presented. So no knowledge takes us to ignorance, which is straightforward. Like if you don't have knowledge, then you will be glided to the lower regions. But the so-called knowledge takes us even to the darker regions. So in that case, lack of knowledge is still better, right? Ignorance is still better compared to the so-called knowledge because that is taking us still further. And how is it that? Because of the impersonal knowledge or the knowledge, material knowledge, which is spiritual impersonal knowledge, can take us to darker regions. And the material knowledge, which takes away from Krishna, both these knowledges, the so-called knowledge of the Vedas and the so-called knowledge of the material things, will take us away from Krishna. And all those are bad. In this case, ignorance is better. Like being ignorant of everything else is still better because at least you have a chance to meet a devotee and then elevate your consciousness. So 10th and 11th in the similar lines, because these are three sets of mantras, 9 to 11, 12 to 14. If we cover them together, then you will have better chances of understanding. So 10th talks about the knowledge of avidya takes us to one destination. The knowledge of vidya takes us to one destination. This vidya that we spoke about or we learned from the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Purport has that information, so we can go through that. The 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks 6 questions in the beginning. What are the 6 questions? Anybody can take a guess?
What is Purusha? What is Prakriti? What is Jnana? What is Nyayam, like knowledge and object of knowledge?
Kshetra.
So 6 questions. What is Prakriti Purusha, Kshetrajna, Jnanam and Geyam? The Geyam is to know the Prakriti and Purusha, you know. Prakriti, Purushas are 2. The living entity and the Supreme Lord are the Purushas. Kshetra is the body. Kshetrajna is the knower of the body. So and Jnanam and Geyam. Jnanam is the knowledge. Geyam is one who knows both the Purushas and the Prakriti is the Kshetrajna, and the object of that knowledge is the Geyam. So what is that object of knowledge? And Krishna describes as soon as he starts to answer. First he answers these questions. What is Jnanam and Geyam? He lists down 20 items. Those are all knowledge. Everything else is lack of knowledge. So first he describes the knowledge as he answers those questions. So that's what is the knowledge we should know. And that is what give us one destination. And the lack of knowledge, everything else that is not those 20 items, gives another destination. That's the 10th verse. And Prabhupada heads us with purport, where he takes us into the purports or into the details of the Bhagavad Gita and explains. Now, 11th verse talks about that we need to have Jnanam, Vidya and Avidya. That's the balance we should have. And what is that we will see in the 11th verse. But the 11th verse itself talks about that one should have both knowledge, Vidya and Avidya. How is that? How is that we should have knowledge and lack of knowledge, or Vidya and Avidya? Vidya is Jnana. So depending on the context, depending on the context, the words take their meanings. So in the earlier words, avidya means pure lack of knowledge. Whereas in the 11th verse, it talks about avidya, which is lack of knowledge of something, which is important, so that there is a balance. Lack of knowledge is sometimes is straightforward. In this case, it is straightforward. Knowledge, 11th verse talks about the knowledge is jnana. And in the 11th verse, the lack of knowledge of avidya talks about karma. So far in the Bhagavad Gita, karma is propagated in terms of understanding the bhakti, because through karma also we can do bhakti. So that kind of knowledge is termed here in the 11th chapter, 11th mantra as avidya. Okay, anything to do with the body, that which takes us to maintain the body, is termed as avidya, which is important as per Bhagavad Gita. In here, it is said, the 11th verse talks about the balance, that one should have both Vidya and Avidya. Okay. I hope it is clear as mud, but we'll get to that. So, we'll read the 11th verse. Sorry, 10th verse, right? I'll read 10th verse today. Am I sharing the Ishopanishad database? Probably not, right? Issue 10. Anmaya devahur vidyaya ninyad ahur avidyaya iti shushramadhiranam enastad vichachakshare. Someone wants to repeat?
Anyadeva vidyaya anyahur avidyaya iti sushrama dhiranam yenastid vichachakshire.
Someone wants to read again?
I can try, Mataji. Anyayad eva hur vidyaya nyadahur avidyaya iti shushruma dhiranam yenastad vichar chakshire.
Synonyms: Anyat, different; Eva, certainly; Ahu, said; Vidya, by culture of knowledge; Anyat, different; Ahuhu, said; Avidya, by culture of nations; Iti, thus; Shushuma, I heard; Dhiranam, from the sober; Ye, who; Na, to us; Tat, that; Vichachakshire, explain. Translation: The wise have explained that one result is derived from the culture of knowledge, and a different result is obtained from the culture of nations. This looks like a little straightforward, because by developing knowledge, there is one result, but by developing nations, there is another result, which is straightforward. So let's read the purport and go through and understand it based on what Prabhupada is talking. Yeah. Someone read?
Shall I read, Mataji?
Yeah, go
ahead. Purport. As advised in the chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita, 13.8 to 12, one should culture knowledge in the following way. One should become a perfect gentleman and learn to give proper respect to others. 2. One should not pose himself as a religionist simply for the name and fame. 3. One should not become a source of anxiety to others by the actions of his body, by the thoughts of his mind, or by his words. 4. One should learn forbearance even in the face of provocation from others. 5. One should learn to avoid duplicity in his dealings with others. 6. One should search out a bona fide spiritual master who can lead him gradually to the stage of spiritual realization, and one must submit himself to such a spiritual master, render him service, and ask relevant questions. Number 7, in order to approach the platform of self realization, one must follow the regulative principles enjoined in the revealed scriptures. 8, one must be fixed in the tenets of revealed scriptures. 9, one should completely refrain from practices which are detrimental to the interest of self-realization. 10, one should not accept more than he requires for the maintenance of body. 11, one should not falsely identify himself with the gross material body, nor should one consider those who are related to his body to be his own. 12, one should always remember that as long as he has a material body, he must face the miseries of repeated birth, old age, disease, and death. There is no use in making plans to get rid of these miseries of the material body. The best course is to find out the means by which one may regain his spiritual identity. 13, one should not attach to more than the necessities of life required for spiritual advancement. 14, one should not be more attached to wife, children, and home than the revealed scriptures ordain. 15, one should not be happy or distressed over desirables and undesirables, knowing for such feelings are just created by the mind. 16, one should become an unalloyed devotee of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna and serve him with rapt attention. 17, one should develop a liking for residence in secluded place with a calm and quiet atmosphere favorable for spiritual culture, and one should avoid congested places where non-devotees congregate. 18, one should become a scientist or a philosopher and conduct research into spiritual knowledge, recognizing that the spiritual knowledge is permanent, whereas material knowledge earns with the death of the body. The 18 items combine to form a gradual progress by which real knowledge can be developed. Except for these, all other methods are considered to be in category of nescience. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakura, a great acharya, mentioned that all forms of material knowledge are merely external features of illusionary energy, and by culturing them, one becomes no better than an ass. This same principle is found here in Sri Ishopanishad. By advancement of material knowledge, modern man is simply being converted into an ass. Some materialistic politicians in spiritual guise decry the present system of civilization as satanic, but unfortunately, they do not care about the culture of real knowledge as it is described in Bhagavad Gita. Thus, they cannot change the satanic situation. In the modern society,
We'll pause.
okay, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji.
So, yeah, these 18 is what Prabhupada is saying, but there are 20 items if you go into the purport and the verses. So, those items are all the parts of knowledge. Krishna starts to explain that all these constitute the knowledge. And the first and the foremost important thing we learned at that time, or probably not with this group, but your teacher would have told you what is the most important thing from that 8 to 12 verses. What is the most important thing that we have to do?
Humility.
Is that anybody? Any other guesses?
Is it surrender to Krishna?
Yeah, what is that called?
Unalloyed devotion.
Mai chananya yogena. Bhaktir abhyabicharini. Mai chananya yogena. That means unto me having unalloyed, undeviated devotion. That is what is the foremost important. As after that, followed by Acharyopasanam, surrendering to a spiritual master. So these are the foremost basis of knowledge. These are the knowledge items. So everything else whatever has been described above are all parts of knowledge, and everything else that doesn't fall in this category is missions. So the destination for each of that is different. One who becomes knowledgeable, that means he is a devotee, his destination is different. Someone who's cultivating the missions, their destination is different. Okay. Now we'll read the next part. This explains about how the other set of people who are culturing nations, what is their behavior and what do they do and what is their destination. Yeah. Someone read?
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
In a modern society, even a boy thinks himself self-sufficient and pays no respect to elderly men. Due to the wrong type of education being imparted in our universities, boys all over the world are giving their elders headaches. Thus, Sri Isha Upanishad very strongly warns that the culture of science is different from that of knowledge. The universities are, so to speak, centers of science only. Consequently, scientists are busy discovering lethal weapons to wipe out the existence of other countries. University students today are not given instructions in the regulative principles of brahmacharya, celibate student life, nor do they have any faith in their spiritual injunctions. Religious principles are taught for the sake of name and fame only, and not for the sake of practical action. Thus, there is animosity not only in social and political fields, but in the fields of religion as well. Nationalism has developed in different parts of the world due to cultivation of new science by the general people. No one considers that this tiny earth is just a lump of matter floating in immeasurable space along with many other lumps. In comparison to the vastness of space, these material lumps are like dust particles in the air, because God has kindly made these lumps of matter complete in themselves. They are perfectly equipped with all the necessities for floating in space. The drivers of our spaceship may be very proud of their achievements, but they do not consider the supreme driver of these greater, more gigantic spaceships called planets.
Okay, we'll pause here. So how is the people who are developing the nations, they are doing the nations or whatever the first ninth verse we spoke, the knowledge in the universities, which is even considered more dangerous than having no knowledge at all, ignorance. So that is where the people having that university education, they start to not respect the teachers and elders. And their material qualifications can make them to build spaceships that can probably go to some distance in the space, but they fail to understand this bigger shape, which is a spaceship, which is the gigantic planet itself is floating in the air. And that is all because they have lack of understanding of God, who has made this bigger spaceship, which is floating and doing everything else completely complete in every sense. They fail to understand that and only think that whatever they have produced and that can attack some country, some people, innocent people. So that is they take that as their knowledge, and that is they're proud of that. And what is that leading them? They're going to go down into the most darkest regions of ignorance. They're going to glide down. And in the universities, there is no way that one can teach about brahmacharya or student life. And that's not even a thing that's spoken about. Whereas in a cultural knowledge, when they develop the Krishna conscious knowledge, they understand all these things right from the get-go, basic regulative principles. So that is elevating, and this knowledge, which is so-called they have developed, material knowledge, that is gliding them down. Yeah. In the same theme, Prabhupada explains some more items. We will read that quickly. Yeah, someone read, please.
I can read. There are there are innumerable suns and innumerable planetary systems also, as infinitesimal parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. We small creatures are trying to dominate these unlimited planets. Thus we take repeated birth and death and are generally frustrated by old age and disease. The span of human life is scheduled for about 100 years, although it is gradually decreasing to 20 or 30 years. Thanks to the culture of nescience, befooled men have created their own nations within these planets in order to grasp sense enjoyment more effectively for these few years. Such foolish people draw up various plans to render national demarcations perfectly. Such foolish people draw up various plans to render national demarcations perfectly, a task that is totally impossible. Yet, for this purpose, each and every nation has become a source of anxiety for others. More than 50% of a nation's energy is devoted to defense measures and thus spoiled. No one cares for the cultivation of real knowledge, yet people are falsely proud of being advanced in both material and spiritual knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mata.
Yeah, this is on the same theme where Prabhupada is condemning that advanced material knowledge, they are proud of it, although they are lacking the real knowledge. And because of this knowledge that they have developed, material knowledge, what is that going to happen to the human? Because they're going to attack other countries, they're going to spread this nuclear warfare in the world, so that reduces the lifespan, and gradually the lifespan of the human beings will come down to 20-30 years. By the end of Bhagavatam, you will read that 2025 is the lifespan of the human beings at that time. So this is where it is going to take with this so-called knowledge that people are developing, advanced man. Okay, now let's read.
I'd like to take a lead, Mataji.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sri Upanishad warns us of the faulty type of education, and the Bhagavad Gita gives instruction as to development of real knowledge. This mantra states that the instructions of Vidya, knowledge, must be acquired from a dhira. A dhira is the one who is not disturbed by material illusion. No one can be undisturbed unless he is perfectly spiritually realized, at which time one neither hankers nor laments for anything. Adhira realizes the material body and mind has acquired by chance through material association are but foreign elements. Therefore, he simply makes the best use of a bad bargain.
Continue.
The material body and mind are bad bargains for the spiritual living entity. The living entity has actual functions in the living spiritual world, but this material world is dead. As long as the living spiritual sparks manipulate the dead lumps of matter, the dead world appears to be a living world. Actually, it is the living souls, the parts and parcels of the Supreme Living Being, who move the world. The Dhiras have come to know all these facts by hearing them from their superior authorities and have realized this knowledge by following the regulative principles. To follow the regulative principles, one must take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. The transcendental message and regulative principles come down from the spiritual master to the disciple. Such knowledge does not come in hazardous ways of assigned education. One can become a dhira only by submissively hearing from a bona fide spiritual master. Arjuna, for example, became a dhira by submissively hearing from Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead himself. Thus, the perfect disciple must be like Arjuna, and the spiritual master must be as good as the Lord himself. This is the process of learning Vidya, knowledge, from a dhira, the undisturbed. A dhira, one who has not undergone the training of a dhira, cannot be an intrusive leader. Modern politicians who pose themselves as dhiras are actually adhiras, and one cannot expect perfect knowledge from them. They are simply busy seeing their own remuneration in dollars and cents. How then can they lead the mass of people to the right path of self-realization? Thus, one must hear submissively from a dhira in order to attain actual education.
Yeah. So from here, now Prabhupada explained about the faults of the material education, and then he speaks about how one should obtain the actual education, the Vedic education, and based on Bhagavad Gita. So one has to, this faulty education can be rectified by following the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, that one should go and seek a dhira. A dhira is a spiritual person who is not disturbed by material illusion. Where does the word come in the Bhagavad Gita verses as dhira? Who is a dhira? Definition?
Matra Sparshasta Kaunteya Sita Shurashatapata Agama Parinvita Tamsitakshavasham Bharata. Okay, that's different, right? Tirastatra Namuyati.
Dehi.
Deho asmin yatha dehe.
Right.
Kama yavanam jana. Antara prapti. Dhirastatra mohyati.
Yeah, the dhira is the one who is not disturbed by material illusion. So that dhira, how has he become a dhira? Because he is understood by this knowledge. that this body is temporary and the body and the soul never dies. It only goes from one body to the other, just as the one takes on the different garments. So how one can become Dhira himself? By approaching another Dhira. How? From the Bhagavad Gita 9:34. What is that verse? 4:34. Sorry.
तद्विधि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेक्ष्यन्ते ते ज्ञानं ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः.
So these Tattvadarshis are Dhiras. So they have understood this knowledge and they are ready to impart that knowledge to the other living entity so that they also can become Dhiras. And this is the right way to approach the knowledge, to obtain the knowledge, to approach a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter from him. Just as how Arjuna has done by surrendering to the spiritual master, Krishna, and one should be in that similar way approach a spiritual master. So, but the so-called Dhiras in the current world who are thinking they are Dhiras, like fearless leaders. That's what the word, right? Fearless leaders. Are they really fearless? They may exhibit such things not based on the actual knowledge, but based on the material knowledge. Like someone can become more talkative, some can have more resources. They become the leaders. They are actually Adhiras. They are not trained in any of this knowledge. They are Adhiras, but they put themselves as Adhiras. So that's not one should not approach and make them as our spiritual gurus or people who we look up to. We should look up to people who are in the Shastra. Arjuna, Yudhishthir Maharaj, who stands by truth. Dhira, who is very strong man, can doesn't let any adharma happen to any innocent people because he's a leader. He's a Kshatriya. And we should make our gurus as our these people who we look up to, our heroes. Not the people who are in the current world where they speak big things, or the film stars or sports people. Although they have all those, they exhibit on the screen and they exhibit in their way when they do their work, but in the real life they are not like that. So at least we should not make them as our heroes. We should make those people, the characters that we have in the scriptures as our heroes to look up to. At least then we can get at least 1% of the qualities that they have. If we start looking at, and this is exactly from what we have learned from conduct ourselves in that mood. Where can we relate this knowledge that we are learning just now, what we just said? How can we relate this knowledge from the previous scripture that we learned? Any guesses? Following the footsteps of the previous acharyas, right? We should conduct our lives so that we can follow in the footsteps, how they have done, how they have conducted their life, by contemplating on their character, by contemplating on the activities they have done. We can similarly imbibe those qualities to some small extent to start off and to a larger extent as we go further. So we should develop such, we should make these people and follow in these footsteps. And if you take the same concept to a Brajavasi, that becomes Ragatmika Bhakti. Right? We learned all this in the issue Nectar of Instruction. So how does it start? It starts by looking up to a character or a saint or a devotee in the scriptures and following in their or imbibing their characters. And how will that happen? By reading Shastra. We need to read, expand our knowledge. That's the first step. And then understand it from a guru based on their realizations. And then start imbibing their qualities. By contemplation, you get the qualities, right? What is that verse in Bhagavad Gita that says this particular concept? Dhyayato
Vishayan Pungshan Sangastaj Bajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamat Kamat Krodha Vijayate Krodat Bhavati Samavad
Sammoha,
Small.
Smriti-vibraha,
Smriti-bharsha.
Smriti-bhramsho, Buddhinasho, Pranashati. First,
Pranashati.
that verse is talking about how you contemplate on a particular object for acquiring it, like hankering for a particular object. That's a life cycle of that. But if you use that particular first word, which is Dhiyayato Vishayan Pumsam, Vishaya is the object here, but if you can use that same concept to a spiritual teacher or a saint or a exalted character from our scriptures, you can also do that. What is that? If you concentrate your thoughts and activities on a particular activities of an exalted person from our scriptures, we will develop an ounce of such qualities that they possess. And slowly that is our progressive path. Right? We should be able to integrate all these scriptures from different teachings. They all because Prabhupada's purport, they culminate. Whereas if you take this verse alone, stand by from the Upanishad, it will take us, like, understanding it might be very hard, because the destination we know, for a Jnani goes to a higher destination, for a Ajnani goes to a lower destination. But when it is supported by the purport from different scriptures, it helps us to understand it better. Right? Any questions on this particular topic?
Mataji, on 17th number, one should develop a liking for residence in a secular place with a calm and quiet atmosphere favorable for spiritual culture. One should avoid congested places where non-devotees congregate, but we live in such non-spiritual environment. So how to just practically assimilate and take this into our life?
Which verse was it? Mantra 7 and 8?
Yeah, no, the 18 out of 18 point, 17 point.
Oh, mantra 17 and 18 you're talking?
No, what is in this purport
Uh-huh.
above
Above. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Where?
and 17 number. There are 18 total qualities, right? From chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and 17th number. So we live in a metropolitan cities where it is always congested and full of chaotic environment. So how can we just practice this or aspire for such?
Yeah, so that is where we are. The influence of Kali is so much that everywhere we are impacted by it. We can see it more and more. Even like it becomes very hard to understand some of this, but then how can we bring it down to our level is within our space that we have, we can make a secluded place within our space, wherever we live. That place can become a secluded place, calm and quiet. At least for some time of the day, we can practice that. This is all we have. So make best use of the bad bargain, right? This is the bad bargain we have signed up for. So better make use of it to the best of its ability. Right? So within our living spaces, we can make this. If you look at the outer world, then there are a lot of people, there is no favorable atmosphere to cultivate spirituality. And if you go out in market, that's how we can see the influence. But then our own place of residence, we can make some space within it and practice it. We need to customize it to whatever we can do. We can't expect that everywhere we step out becomes an spiritually uplifting place. So that is only in Vrindavan, Mathura, Mayapur. Where you go out, you will find devotees everywhere walking on the roads. But not here, right? So to the extent that is available to us, we need to make it. Okay, we'll move to mantra 11, which talks about that we should have a balance. balance of vidya and avidya. So avidya is that which is bringing, avidya is karma. So basically to say that karma is avidya, because in karma you are only taking care of your bodily necessities, which is avidya. And vidya is the knowledge, jnana. And this knowledge here is talking about the spiritual knowledge. And when we expand this knowledge to higher, in this verse it is said that vidya and avidya has to be cultivated simultaneously. Whereas when we take it further based on Bhagavad Gita knowledge, we understand that vidya is jnanam, that knowledge that gives us the knowledge about the Lord and his devotees, that is vidya. And avidya is the karma yoga part of it. That means we need to do whatever is necessary for us to keep the body and soul together. That is karma, right? We cannot give up the body because this is avidya. The body is full of ignorance, so let me give it up. We cannot do that because this is the only thing that we have. And this is through which only we can go higher up. That is why we need to take care of this kshetra. The kshetra is very important. This kshetra made of the 24 elements that we learned in 13th chapter is very important for us to cultivate the knowledge. So we should maintain it also. So from this verse, what they are saying, avidya is the bodily necessities that one should maintain, and vidya is the knowledge of the scripture. But from taking that understanding higher, avidya is the taking care of the body, which is very important so that we can make progress through the body. Because our ultimate aim is to keep the body and soul together as much as possible, so we can elevate our consciousness while we are still in this body. So vidyam cha yas tadvedobhyam saha avidyam mrityam tirtva vidyayamritam ashnute. Someone wants to repeat?
Yes, Mataji, I can try.
Vidyam cha yas
Vidyam cha yas
tadvedobhyam saha
tadvedobhyam saha
avidyaya mrityam tirtva
mrityum tirtva
vidyayamritam ashnute.
vidyayamritam anushyate. Sorry, ashnate.
Shakti Mataji, you want to repeat?
Yes, I can try and after you.
Yeah. Vidyam cha yas
Vidyam cha yas
tadvedobhyam saha
tadvedobhyam saha
avidyaya mrityam tirtva
avidya mrityam tirtva
vidyayamritam ashnute.
vidyam tam ashu. How do you say the last word?
Ashnute.
Ashuate.
Thank you.
Okay,
Synonym. Vidyam, knowledge in fact, cha, and avidyam, missions, cha, and yaha, a person who, that Veda knows, ubhyam, both, saha, simultaneously, avidyaya, by culture of nations, mrityam, repeated death, titva, transcending, vidyaya, by culture of knowledge, amritam, deathlessness, ashnute, enjoys. Translation. Only one who can learn the process of nations and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. Someone wants to read purport?
I can try, Mataji. Oh, go ahead. No, Prabhu, go ahead.
Thank you, Mataji. Since the creation of the material world, everyone has been trying to attain a permanent life, but the laws of nature are so cruel that no one has been able to avoid the hand of death. No one wants to die, nor does anyone want to become old or distressed or deceased. The law of nature, however, does not allow anyone immunity from old age, disease, or death, nor has the advancement of material knowledge solved these problems. Material science can discover the nuclear bomb to accelerate the process of death, but it cannot discover anything that can protect man from the cruel hands of old age, disease, and death. Want to continue, Mataji?
Continue one minute.
From the Puranas, we learn of the activities of Hiranyakashipu, a king who was very much advanced materially, wanting to conquer cruel death by his material acquisition and strength of his nescience. He underwent a type of meditation so severe that the inhabitants of all the planetary systems became disturbed by his mystic powers. He forced the creator of the universe, the demigod Brahma, to come down to him. He then asked Brahma for the benediction of becoming Amara, by which one does not die. Brahma said that he could not award the benediction because even he, the material creator who rules all the planets, is not Amara. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 8.17, Brahma lives a long time, but that does not mean he is immortal. Hare Krishna.
I think the next point is all about the Hiranyakashipu. Okay, so let's summarize this part. So everyone is trying to lord it over material nature from time immemorial. Everyone wants to make it a permanent situation for them. But that's not possible. The example quoted from the Shastra is of the Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu wanted to lord it over all the universe, the entire universe, and also take the position of even Brahma. So he prayed to Brahma to take over his kingdom as well. So that is how the material knowledge is, that they pray to someone and want to take their position itself. Like you pray to Lord and take the Lord's position. That's not impossible. So that's what they do. The object of their worship is what they are targeting as well, to take over their position. So Hiranyakashipu prayed to Lord Brahma asking for immortality because he thought that he's the most smartest guy. He can give so many permutations and combinations and come up with some ask that he will ask, and Brahma will award him. That no one can, no man, no animal, no weapon, no place in the air or in the land and the water, no man, of course, no demigod, no weapon. So all these permutations, because these are the ones through which a person can be killed. But Brahma said, okay, still okay. But he said, I cannot give you immortality. First he prayed for immortality. Brahma said, I am myself not immortal. I am going to die after my 100 years, which is a very long time compared to our life. But he himself will not have to live for eternally. From our calculation, the 312 trillion years looks like eternal. But from Brahma's calculation, it is just 100 years for him. So he says, I myself have to leave this body and this situation after 100 years. I cannot award you the immortality. Then Hiranyakashipu comes up with a plan. Let me give all these combinations. Like no man, no weapon, no air, no inside, no outside, no water, no fire. None of that. And then what did Brahma say? Yes, my Lord can be come up with some himself in a way that it will satisfy all this. And that is Lord Narasimhadev. Narasimhadev came and killed Hiranyakashipu, not on land, not on water, not inside, not outside, not during daytime, not during nighttime. He didn't use any weapon. And he's not a human, he's not an animal. He's half human, half animal. Inside, in between the house, which is just in between, marginal place, neither here, not there, not daytime, not nighttime. He didn't use any weapon, he used his nails. So Brahma knows, because Brahma is a full knowledge, he knows that this can be met. This situation can be met, what Hiranyakashipu, because the Lord is supreme, independent, he can do whatever manifestation he wants, and he will do it. So that is how, and what did Lord Vishnu do? He upheld Brahma's boon, because that's what Lord Vishnu does. He gives a word to his devotees, or he upholds the words of a devotee. He upholded the words of Brahma, and he upheld the words of his devotee Prahlad. Prahlad said, yes, he can be found in this pillar also. And Brahma said, yes, your wish will be fulfilled. You won't be killed by any of this. But yet, the Lord fulfilled everyone. right? So this is what Lord Vishnu does to fulfill his devotees' desires. So material knowledge doesn't make us understand this depth of this spiritual knowledge. So if you don't understand it from that, then you will continue to rot in this material world. And if one wants to make a permanent life, that's not possible. We cannot. Permanently, one can live only by developing the spiritual knowledge, not material knowledge. Yeah, let's read next part.
Hiranya means gold and Kashipu means soft bed. This cunning gentleman Hiranyakashipu was interested in these two things, money and woman. And he wanted to enjoy them by becoming immortal. He asked from Brahma many benedictions in hopes of indirectly fulfilling his desire to become immortal. Since Brahma told him that he could not grant the gift of immortality, Hiranyakashipu requested that he not be killed by any man, animal, god, or any other living being within the 8,400,000 species. He also asked that he not die on land, in the air or water, or by any weapon. In this way, Hiranyakasipu foolishly thought these guarantees would save him from death. Ultimately, however, although Brahma granted him all these benedictions, he was killed by the partiality of Godhead in the form of Nrsimha, the Lord's half lion, half man incarnation, and no weapon was used to kill him, for he was killed by Lord's nails, nor he was killed on the land, in the air, or in the water, for he was killed on the lap of that wonderful living being, Nrsimha, who was beyond this conception.
Yeah.
Shall I continue?
Read.
The whole point here is that even Hiranyakashipu, the most powerful of materialists, could not become deathless by his various plans. What then can be accomplished by the tiny Hiranyakashipus of today, who plans that thwarted from moment to moment? Whose plans are thwarted from moment to moment? Sri Ishopanishad instructs us not to make one-sided attempts to win the struggle for existence. Everyone is struggling hard for existence, but the laws of material nature are so hard and fast that they do not allow anyone to surpass them. In order to attain a permanent life, one must be prepared to go back to Godhead. The process by which one goes back to Godhead is a different branch of knowledge, and it has to be learned from revealed Vedic scriptures such as Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam. To become happy in this life and attain a permanent blissful life after leaving this material body, one must study this sacred literature and obtain transcendental knowledge. The conditioned living being has forgotten his eternal relationship with God and has mistakenly accepted the temporary place of his birth as all in all. The Lord has kindly delivered the above-mentioned scriptures in India and other scriptures in other countries to remind the forgetful human being that his home is not here in this material world. The living being is a spiritual entity and he can be happy only by returning to his spiritual home.
Someone else read? Yeah, so what Prabhupada is giving the example of Hiranyakashipu, that how much ever you try being such a powerful man, he couldn't he couldn't fulfill his ambition of living forever. His plans were thwarted. And what to speak of tiny Hiranyakashipus who want to build their place in Mars, and they don't even have 100 years to live, and they're talking to go to planets like Mars and build colonies there, going even to moon and build colonies. Anyway, so these are the tiny Hiranyakashipus of this current day, and their plans will be thwarted because they don't even. Hiranyakashipu lived for a lot of time. Yeah. During the Satyuga, he had a lot of time at his hand, but right now we are talking about less than 100 years. 100 years is like three-digit age. We don't see a lot of people having that. 2 digits. Late 2 digits, if we can get into that itself is very hard. Yeah, so one should not just make this one-sided attempt. Prabhupada is saying this one-sided only. You want to become rich, you want to become wealthy, you want to become strong, you're healthy, intelligent. Like if you only make this one-sided thing, what is it going to get? You need to look at the other side also, which is spiritual aspect. To make a permanent life, Only when we go back to God, that so when we put our attention, turn our attention at least to some part of it, right? We're only talking about just material aspiration, material advancement. It'll only glide us down. So make some part of our life also turn towards the spiritual aspirations. So then there will be some balance in the life. This verse is talking about having that balance. We should develop material knowledge just to keep this body together, as well as the spiritual knowledge. And if we do that, there is no confusion. There is no, we can live. He doesn't have any, he can live with full immortality, full blessings of immortality in that way. Because his material knowledge is also turning towards keeping the whole purpose of keeping his material body together is only for one purpose of developing the spiritual knowledge. Okay, where are we? We can read. From here, right? Yeah, from here. Anybody?
I can read.
Go ahead.
From his kingdom, the personality of Godhead sends his bona fide servants to propagate this message by which one can return to Godhead. And sometimes the Lord comes himself to do this work. Since all living beings are his beloved sons, his parts and parcels, God is more sorry than we ourselves to see the sufferings we are constantly undergoing in this material condition. The miseries of this material world serve to indirectly remind us of our incompatibility with dead matter. Intelligent living entities generally take note of these reminders and engage themselves in the culture of vidya, or transcendental knowledge. Human life is the best opportunity for the culture of spiritual knowledge, and a human being who does not take advantage of this opportunity is called a Naradhama, the lowest of human beings.
Yeah. So from the, we need to, so Prabhupada is talking about, there are spiritual masters that are there in this world, like himself, who came directly by the order of the Lord to preach this message to the people. And the people can take advantage of it. And whatever they're experiencing in the current life, the miseries of this material world, they should take the cue from there to understand that there is incompatibility with this dead matter. What we are spirit souls, and there is incompatibility that we are surrounded by. So become intelligent, take that message from these bona fide servants coming down and engage in the culture of Vidya. So if people who lose that chance or opportunity, who don't take that opportunity, they are called as Naradamas, lowest of mankind. Okay, someone please read.
I can read, Mataji. The path of avidya, or advancement of material knowledge for sense gratification, is the path of repeated birth and death. As he exists spiritually, the living entity has no birth or death. Birth and death apply to the outward covering of the spirit soul, the body. Death is compared to the taking off, and birth to the putting on of earthly adornments. Foolish human beings who are grossly absorbed in the culture of avidya and the science do not mind this cruel process. Enamored with the beauty of the illusory energy, they undergo the same miseries repeatedly and do not learn any lessons from the laws of nature.
So just like the body keeps up the life in this, the spirit soul gives up the body and takes another, and just like he's putting a new garment, dehinosmin yata dehi. So that if one does not understand them, then he's repeatedly going through the same process. So one should learn at least that process, that we are spirit souls taking on different garments in each and every life, and let us stop this. If one can understand that, then his spiritual life starts. Yeah, someone please read.
I can read again if nobody wants.
Good.
Therefore, the culture of Vidya, or transcendental knowledge, is essential for the human being. Sense enjoyment in the diseased material condition must be restricted as far as possible. Unrestricted sense enjoyment in this bodily condition is a part of ignorance and death. The living entities are not without spiritual senses. Every living being in his original spiritual form has all the senses, which are now materially manifested, being covered by a material body and mind. The activities of the material senses are perverted reflections of the activities of the original spiritual senses. In his diseased condition, the spirit soul engages in material activities. That's not the way I move. Being unrestricted.
Here.
Oh, okay. In a diseased condition, the spirit soul engages in material activities under the material covering. Sense enjoyment is possible only when the disease of materialism is removed. In our pure spiritual form, free from all material contaminations, real enjoyment of the senses is possible. A patient must regain his health before he can truly enjoy sense pleasure again. Thus, the aim of human life should not be to enjoy perverted sense enjoyment, but to cure the material disease. Aggravation of the material disease is no sign of knowledge, but a sign of avidya, ignorance. For good health, a person should not increase his fever from 105 degrees to 107 degrees, but should reduce his temperature to the normal 98.6. That should be the aim of human life. The modern trend of material civilization is to increase the temperature of the feverish material condition, which has reached the point of 107 degrees in the form of atomic energy. Meanwhile, the foolish politicians are crying that at any moment the world may go to hell. This is the result of advancement of material knowledge and the neglect of the most important part of life, the culture of spiritual knowledge. The Sri Isha Upanishad herein warns that we must not follow this dangerous path leading to death. On the contrary, we must develop the culture of spiritual knowledge so that we may become completely free from the cruel hands of death.
The analogy that Prabhupada gives here is the body temperature. The body has a temperature of 98.6, and if we increase that, that means it is disease condition, can even lead to death. So if we only look at the body for the material sense enjoyment, that is actually death. The body, the real sense enjoyment is to understand that here it is said. The real sense enjoyment is possible only when the disease of materialism is removed. So removing the material enjoyment and keeping the enjoyment only to satisfy the Lord, that is the real sense enjoyment. Because our senses are enjoying, and that's the real sense enjoyment. In a spiritual form, free from all material contamination, real enjoyment of the senses is possible. So we are still enjoying, we are still keeping the body temperature as 98 degrees, and we're still enjoying, so that our senses are satisfied, but we're keeping it in the spiritual way. So we cannot remove complete sense enjoyment. That is why we dovetail all our activities. We need to have a body temperature of 98.6, which is important. If we come down, also it's not good. If we go up, it's also not good. So the enjoyment has to be there by dovetailing. It means that we need to dovetail our enjoyment to the spiritual activities so that we are also in that process satisfied, our senses are satisfied, and we are doing the right thing. So that is the way to do this balance. How to balance? We need to do our material duties. We need to carry on our duties. Whatever we are supposed to do, we have to do. That's the material aspect. Purpose is to attain the spiritual result at the end. In this process, we cultivate both knowledge and missions simultaneously, so that with the intention is important here. Intention is to become spiritually advanced so that we get a higher destination. But we should not just tread on that path of developing only this material knowledge, and that's a dead matter. That's what Prabhupada says. Yeah, in the similar lines. Yeah, someone read.
Shall I read, Mataji?
Yeah, please.
This does not mean that all activities of maintenance of body should be stopped. There is no question of stopping activities, just as there is no question of wiping out one's temperature altogether when trying to recover from a disease. To make the best use of the bad bargain is the appropriate expression. The culture of spiritual knowledge necessitates the help of body and mind. Therefore, maintenance of body and mind is required if we are to reach our goal. The normal temperature should be maintained at 98.6 degrees, and the great sages and saints of India have attempted to do this by a balanced program of spiritual and material knowledge. They never allow the misuse of human intelligence for a diseased sense gratification. Human activities diseased by tendency towards sense gratification have been regulated in Vedas under the principle of salvation. This system employs religion, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation. But at the present moment, people have no interest in religion or salvation. They have only one aim in life, sense gratification, and in order to achieve this end, they make plans for economic development. Misguided men think that religion should be maintained because it contributes to economic development, which is required for sense gratification. Thus, in order to guarantee further sense gratification after death in heaven, there is some system of religious observance. But this is not the purpose of religion. The path of religion is actually meant for self realization, and economic development is required just to maintain the body in a sound, healthy condition. A man should lead a healthy life with a sound mind, just to realize vidya, true knowledge, which is aim of human life. This life is not meant for working like an ass or for culturing avidya for sense gratification. The path of vidya is most perfectly presented in Srimad Bhagavatam, which directs a human being to utilize his life to inquire into the absolute truth. The absolute truth is realized step by step as Brahman, Paramatma, and finally Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The absolute truth is realized by a broad-minded man who has attained knowledge and detachment by following the 18 principles of Bhagavad Gita described in the purport to Mantra 10. The central purpose of these 18 principles is to attain transcendental service to the personality of Godhead. Therefore, all classes of men are encouraged to learn the art of devotional service to the Lord. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
So one should definitely aim to have a healthy life and a sound mind, just to realize vidya, the true knowledge. So one should, if you say that, okay, devotees are even becoming health conscious, that's not the point. So they should do. Everyone should develop a healthy lifestyle and a sound mind just to develop the knowledge so that they can achieve the aim of life, which is to understand Krishna consciousness, which is become Krishna consciousness. That is the aim of our life, right? So this has to be cultivated. Everyone should become health conscious. If they say, oh, this body is, I'm not this body, why we should maintain? So that's a radical consciousness. That is radical thinking. If one person thinks in that way, then that is not the right path. Because if we don't have this body also, how are you going to make progress? If you cut it short, thinking that this body is dead matter, let's not spend a lot of time maintaining the body. There may be some people who might have that thought process, because when they start initial Krishna consciousness, they take it up very seriously, everything, but then that is, it becomes Markata Vairagya. That persons can become Markata Vairagyas also eventually. So there has to be balance at every step. Don't overdo anything, don't underdo anything. That balance at our level. What is our adhikar? We need to understand that. And when we speak of philosophy also, don't speak philosophy that is over your eligibility. So that is also not recommended. So we have to understand where we stand, accordingly apply and speak the same wherever we are. We have to maintain the body. We have to understand the process of Krishna consciousness. So make everything progressive. Don't take it in one line continuously and then say that, and then later on you have to fall down. That's not a command. That has to be avoided. Although Krishna gives the benefit to those also. because nothing is wasted in this life, whatever progress you make. But don't make it artificial. Don't show artificial progress. Keep natural, organically let us develop by using this knowledge. Take everything that is being provided to us to the best advantage that we have and apply. Application is very important. Keep applying on this path and then we'll reach eventually Krishna's mercy. We need to continuously depend on Krishna's mercy. We have no other way. That is where our process is. We have to be recipients of, we are the recipients of the mercy. We are mercy people, mercy factor. We probably don't have a lot of qualification. Maybe some of you have, but many of us are based on only mercy. We don't have any qualifications. So we are only dependent on the mercy of the spiritual teachers and the disciplic succession Guru Parampara. So recognize that in your life, how the mercy is flowing, and be grateful for that and develop and give it back to your gurus, whatever they are giving you. Return them by being truthful to the process, to the teachings. This is the way only we can. What can we give to Prabhupada? We cannot give anything. We don't have any capacity to give. Our capacity is only to following his instructions. That is giving back. That is the process of giving back to Guru Parampara. Okay, now what Prabhupada, the last section, how we can do this? Yeah, someone read. The guaranteed path to the aim of Vidya is described by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which we are presented in English as the Rector of Devotion. The culture of Vidya is summarized in Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam 1-14, in the following words. Tasmadekena manasa bhagavan shashvatam patihi shrotabhya kirtitavyasya deya pujasya nityada. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. Unless religion, economic development, and sense gratification aim toward the attainment of devotional service to the Lord, they are all simply different forms of missions, as Sri Ishopanishad indicates in the following mantras. So this section was spoken about the knowledge and Vidya and Avidya. How Vidya is sometimes dangerous compared to Avidya, and what situations. We learned that in 9th. 10th, we learned that there is a different destination when we go Avidya part, Avidya way, and the different destination we go to develop Vidya. And how do we develop Vidya? By approaching a Tira. Then we can get Vidya, and there is a destination for that. Now, in the 11th, it is spoken that there has to be Vidya and Avidya simultaneously cultivated, because this is the only way, because we are in this material world. Vidya and Avidya, in the sense of Ishopanishad, Avidya is the material aspect that we have to keep maintaining so that Vidya can be ultimately achieved. And our only goal is Tasmadekena manasa Bhagavan Shashvatam Pati Shrotabhya Krititavyasya Deya Pujasya Nityada. By with single pointed attention, we should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. That is what. Now, the next section, what Prabhupada has already gave a hint to, is how this, unless religion, economic development, and sense gratification aim toward attainment of devotional service to the Lord, they're simply different forms of missions. So that means we're going to learn, we'll be exposed to some knowledge that even in religion, even in economic development, even in sense gratification, if the aim is not towards devotional service, they are all different forms of missions. So right now we spoke about knowledge, and then we're going to speak about the spirituality also. This, the developing of spirituality can also become can lead us to nations. Those are the following mantras. Again, if we read all three together, that will help. Maybe tomorrow we can try to cover all three. I don't know how long they are, but we can try. Any questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, my question is kind of related to this, but it can be disconnected as well. I think this one really emphasizes on the superiority of the human life and how it is meant for spiritual realization, right? And I have realized that in our Vedas, it also talks about that there are 8.4 million species, and if your karma is not good, you can fall down to the lower species as well, right? So I was just wondering, very silly question, that if somebody is in the life of a cockroach, how do they know what karma they should perform to get to human life, to get to a better life? I, I don't know any other species other than humans who understand these karmas so that they can do better karmas to elevate themselves.
They don't have karma, right? Animal species don't have karma. They have to go to transmigration from one species to the other. They have to, in that way only they can attain to the human form. That's why human form is very rare. After traversing through so many species, we have attained the human form. So it's very, after a hard labor, we have attained this human form of life. So then we need to make best use of the bad battle. That's what it is. So the cockroaches and any other animals, they don't have any karma. So they don't. Sukruti works. Sukruti works. You can give Sukruti to any living entities. I mean, give them some prasad, give them some sound vibration. All the animals in your house, living entities in your house can hear the sound vibration. Sukruti works, but karma doesn't work for them. They go through the transmigration.
So, Mataji, is it right to say that, let's just say, if a soul takes birth as a cockroach, and when they die as a cockroach, it's like going to another body? It can be some other species, because looks like there is at least this is how I'm thinking about it. Of the 8.4 million species, if we can say human is the superior, there is one which is the lowest, then number 2, number 3, number 4, and you keep going to the higher level once you are done with one lifetime. Is that how it is?
What is number 1, 2, you said?
I'm saying that looks like of the 8.4 million species, there is actually a number grading. There has to be something which is the lowest. For example, even if we say number 1 is the highest, we would say human species is the number 1. Then there has to be something 1 less than human species, and then 1 to the least favorable one. So
Yes.
it's like that you keep progressing from the bottommost to the higher as you die, right?
Yeah.
So, sorry again, I know this is very relevant, very stupid, but you would say that if one dies as a cockroach, now next is the next level on the hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
And okay, very interesting. Is there a Shastric reference to this?
No, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita is
Okay.
I'm exposed to. So we know it from the purports. Prabhupada has given the purports, right? Like how the transmigration, there's no karma for the animals. They don't, even if they kill other animals in their life, in their same, or the higher, the tiger kills the lower species like deers and eat. They don't get karma because they have to eat. So they kill. Because they won't be punished. They won't be given a jail punishment where they have to suffer like that. It doesn't there. So then they will be elevated to the next category of species. So if the human beings intervene and kill their life, kill some of these animals, what happens to them? So much of injustice happening because they are transmigrating from one species to the other. If human beings intervene and kill them, their growth is halted. And because there is that number of time that they have to spend in that particular species is not completed, they need to repeat that. So killing of animals, they have to repeat that because this human being doesn't have the capacity to liberate that animal. That happens in the Vedic practices, not if a butcher kills an animal. So he's intervening in its life and he's halting its progress, move to the next species. But there is some more time left as per the overall karma cycle. Then he has to take, that animal has to take birth again in the same species and finish that life time.
Important, Masaji. Thank you.
Yeah, so tomorrow we'll try to see. We're not going to each and every purport and see how much ever we can to do the 3 verses together.